I'm Bethany, and that's Drew.
When it comes to military history in Los Angeles, few places exemplify it better than Fort MacArthur.
With active service dating as far back as World War I and extending well into the 1970s, this fort has become a vault of relics.
Today we're going to take a look at some of the infrastructure built right into this hillside to help defend LA's harbor for the better part of the 20th century. Welcome
to Fort MacArthur, right here on Oddity Odysseys.
Is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, well, that was actually pretty easy. But I think getting through the park is a little convoluted, so should we give them the map? Just give them the map. Oh, give them the speed bumps too. Ugh. From the 110 freeway in San Pedro, exit at Gaffey Street and take that a little over 2 miles south. At 32nd Street, turn right into Angels Gate Park. Follow this all the way around until it ends at Leavenworth Drive. The museum is just beyond the fence. There's all kinds of bunkers up on this hill. You can turn there, and there's more bunkers and stuff up there. If you keep going straight, you should run into Battery Osgood Farley. And I think they're cool if you just park right here. Ta-da! The construction of Fort MacArthur actually dates back to 1888. Los Angeles Harbor was expanding, and President Grover Cleveland decided to designate a hilly region overlooking San Pedro Bay as a military reservation intended to defend the port.
It wasn't until the onset of World War I that the fort was officially created on October 31st, 1914, and named after Civil War veteran Lieutenant General Arthur MacArthur. In the 3 years that followed, 2 large gun batteries were installed into the hillside for harbor defense, Battery Osgood Farley and Battery Leary Merriam. So Battery Osgood Farley is actually made up of 2 separate gun platforms. Here we have Osgood, which is to the west, and Farley, which is to the east. And both were named after American Civil War generals. Each battery was made up of 2 14-inch 34 caliber disappearing guns. Each gun weighed over 400 tons and could launch a 1,500-pound projectile 27 miles out over the Catalina Channel.
So the gun would sit right here in this round turret. And the purpose of this chevron-shaped wall, watch your step, was to protect the armaments and the personnel from incoming fire from the ocean, which is that way.
I do feel like this is a very safe structure.
Yeah, I feel very secure here. But anyway, the gun would sit here, and they would load it, and they would crank it up over the wall, fire the round, and the recoil from firing would bring the gun back down here to ground level where they would reload it.
So that's why they're called disappearing guns.
Exactly. It's a pretty remarkable feat of engineering.
So we went up some steps and then down some more steps, and
and here we are. Let's see what's over here. Oh, yes. This was the battery commander's position.
Ooh.
Right through this door, there's a little bitty room. Unfortunately, it's locked, so we can't get in there either. But this is where the battery commander would spot enemy targets out over the water and then communicate that information down to the gun turrets.
We had a very important position.
Definitely.
All from this tiny door.
Yep.
Up the hill northeast of Osgood Farley are the remains of another identical battery called Leary Merriam. As you can see, both of the batteries were positioned to be aimed toward southeast, and that was to protect the Long Beach harbor in case of an attack. And you get a lot of nice ocean views.
Yeah, for sure. So this one looks a little less preserved.
Yeah.
I would say. Although it looks like somebody's done some artwork over here.
To kind of match the beach ambiance, I guess.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of life.
I keep feeling like these are windows and I want to look inside.
Oh, but they're just holes.
They're holes. We see another gated off bunker, it looks like.
Yeah.
But they are still very well protected, as they should be. It looks like when you turn right, there's a lot more down there. The never-ending tunnels.
Yep.
I like it. So in addition to these 2 guys, there was a 3rd battery called Barlow Saxton.
It's on the other side of the park.
Yeah, on the back side of the fort.
Yeah.
And he had 8 12-inch mortars with a 360-degree range. Not only that, that battery also had 4 2-gun pits, which made it the only one of its kind in the United States. You have some steps. I guess we can get up to the platform up here. Oh no, that's gated off? No. The place is a bit of a maze.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So here we are at Battery Leary, which is the other half of Leary Miriam. You can still see the chevron shape, but you also see that it's been converted. There have been a couple other structures added here. This green building is right where the gun turret used to be. And over there you can see the distinct design of a target ranging radar platform. And where have we seen those before?
LA missile site in 96.
That's right. During the Cold War era, this was converted to be one of the Nike missile sites. There were 16 of them around the LA area, and this was LA 43, I believe. Very cool, and it's still here.
It sounds like the military managed to find some use for Fort MacArthur despite the ever-changing times.
Definitely. In fact, up until 1974, it was still in use until they officially decommissioned the base. And now, this area is being used by the Marine Exchange. But still a lot more to see. So once again, we are back at Battery Osgood Farley, and we're going to meet a very special guest over here. One of the assistant curators is going to give us a tour inside. Well, here we are with Alan Scardera, the assistant curator here at the museum, and he's going to take us on a tour of Battery Osgood here. So what are we about to see?
So we're about to see where all of the munition and powder for these 14-inch disappearing guns were stored.
Excellent.
The men here would have had to arm and fire these guns at a rate of about 1 round a minute. So a team of over 100 men are working together to move hundreds and thousands of pounds every single minute to fire these big guns. Let's head on in.
All right. It's definitely a secure facility, it looks like.
Big guns deserve big locks.
I guess we're right inside the gate, and I have so many questions here.
We can take a look at this section right here.
Okay.
And you can see these white bags of powder.
I do.
And the guns would require 6 of those bags, or 300 pounds, in order to fire one of these 14-inch artillery shells.
Wow.
This is a 14-inch armor-piercing shell.
Okay.
So this was the bread and butter of Fort MacArthur.
Okay.
Because we were here to try and sink ships, right?
Yeah.
And this thing was trying to get through battleships. During the Second World War, the largest of these battleships was the Yamato, and she had about 16 inches of steel around her superstructure.
And this could penetrate that?
They were designed to punch through any ship's armor and sink her.
Wow.
And these things weigh about 1,500 pounds each.
Okay, well, we're not picking that up today. We're just going to leave it there. Were these ever used here actively?
Not in anger, thankfully.
Yeah.
The first job of any fort is to deter an attack, which Fort MacArthur did.
All right, so Alan, what have you brought us to now?
This is the breech, or the back end of a 14-inch rifle.
The breech?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So when we think of a gun, this is a section that would hold the chambered round right before it fires.
Got it, okay.
And I want you to go ahead and look down the breech barrel right there. And you guys see the ridge is way at the end?
Just climb in there. Why not?
That's the rifling. So that's where the rifle barrel actually starts. When this fort was built in the 1910s, the Army didn't have any kind of mechanical assist. Everything was done by hand. So a team of 20 guys have to take an oversized ramrod and shove that 1,500-pound shell all the way to where that rifling starts. And then you have to get the black powder in. Finally, you lock it up.
Does it still close, or is it locked off right now?
It's a little seized.
Fair enough. But this would close and it would fill that hole.
Yes. So once that's done, they would be launching that 1,500-pound shell about 27 miles.
You could hit Catalina.
Absolutely.
With 27 miles. Wow.
So what are we heading to now?
We're going to talk about these searchlights as we walk past this nice long line. By 1940, Los Angeles County was producing about 90% of all airplanes in the United States.
90%?
90, which meant that as the Second World War started, producing airplanes and defending ourselves from airplanes was a very, very important task. And these searchlights were absolutely instrumental to that task. It produces a beam of light about 1/3 the brightness of the sun. We have 6 functioning searchlights. Or as I like to put it, we have 2 suns.
Yep, Fort MacArthur has 2 suns, guys. 2 suns.
When the Cold War started, the fear on the West Coast was Soviet bombing fleets coming over the Pacific Ocean with nuclear devices. So we needed a new defensive system. And that took the form of the Nike Missile Defense Program, of which this was the first generation of missiles, the Nike Ajax. It's guided by a ground-based radar to intercept a Soviet bomber at a range of about 17 miles, where the conventional warhead would then explode, destroying the bomber.
Hold on, I have to take a journey to go all the way to the end over here. Obviously, this place is a bit of a maze, but I see this as some kind of exit back here. What does this lead to?
This is the exit to the Farley 14-inch disappearing gun pit.
Okay, awesome.
So you imagine the men carrying the powder and the rounds on the little cart to the gun pit to arm that gun.
There was a strategic plan for where everything was placed.
Everything was on the exact same level. So you didn't have to raise this 1,500-pound shell up however many stories.
Right.
Instead, you just run with it.
Just run with it.
Just run with it.
So we're about to enter the communications room, I hear?
Yes, and that is the most important room in the entire fort because it allowed the men here to communicate with the other 30,000 men defending Los Angeles County and the entirety of the Western Defense Command and wider military.
So we needed this in operation.
Above all else, which is why we have the biggest door here.
I was gonna say, that's a high security.
See, this are all of the radio equipment, receivers, transmitters, so on and so forth. And these are what allow the fort to communicate with the outside world. For example, this right here, this is a field radio, but if it's set up properly, it could reach places as far away as Hong Kong. Here we have a punch tape that has a message punched onto it, which is then read by these machines. These are teletypes. You would take a message and you would encode it onto the tape. You could also simply type out a message on a teletype and it would automatically print out the same message on another teletype.
Wow, and you can just kind of right now being in here, kind of just hear the clacking and the hustle and bustle, and you can almost feel that energy in this room. Because this was so vital for communications, and let's say, boop, blackout, power outage, what do they do? What is this?
They would use this.
Oh.
It's a hand crank.
Wow.
So you take whichever private pissed off his CEO the most, and he would have to provide power for this room.
So if the power goes out, would they have to just keep going and crank it constantly if the power goes out, just to make sure everything in this room stays lit and working?
Yes, and that was very vital that they keep cranking hard and fast, because otherwise you can't communicate without the outside world. And if the power's out, you probably need to communicate.
Right, so don't get tired using this.
Well, Alan, thank you so much. It was an amazing tour here at Fort MacArthur. Alan Scardera.
Well, thank you both for visiting. It was wonderful to have both of you.
Thanks for the great tour.
For 60 years, Fort MacArthur helped to keep the Los Angeles area safe. Now you have the chance to help keep the history of the museum alive.
Check out their website, ftmac.org, for information on how you can donate to help preserve this historic landmark.
And there is a lot more to see here, so be sure to check out their website to book your own tour, and they're open a few days a week.
If you enjoyed our adventure today, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon so you can stay notified when we release new adventures.
Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
So here you can see how huge these gun platforms actually were, and the guns themselves were over 50 feet long. So to give you an idea, Bethany down there's, what, maybe 40, 45 feet away?
So if I wanted to shoot you in the face,
Then you'd have to back up.
then I'd have to back up.